Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last little while, and I would say that this brewery are best known for their New England hazy IPAs and also for their big fruity juicy sours, the Berliner Weisses and the Goses and things like this. So yeah, if you're into those styles, this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out, and generally speaking, I would say that this is one of the Swedish breweries to keep an eye on over the next little while. They're doing some very, very nice stuff, and I always keep an eye out for their new releases. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to Strömstad, which is a very picturesque little fishing town from what I understand, just a little bit south of the Norwegian border on the Swedish west coast. Hopefully I can get up there sometime to visit, maybe do a Meet the Brewery segment with these guys. But for this review, we are going to return to Fermenterarna once again, or the fermenters as you would call them in English. But this particular beer is called I Ain't No Crazy Horse. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy double imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for May of 2021, and yeah, it is supposed to be a pretty good beer actually. I also got one of the sour beers this month as well, so you'll see me review that in a few videos time. But yeah, certainly looking forward to this one. This has got a very impressive hop bill in it, which we'll come to a little bit later on. But yeah, the last IPA that I had from these guys, it was called, was it Beyond the Beast it was called? And that one was a little bit more of a kind of West Coasty bitter type beer, and I really enjoyed that as well. I would love to see these guys do like a proper 8% double West Coast IPA. I think that could be a really interesting project for Fermenterarna to do at some point soon. I'd also love to see these guys do like a nice Pilsner or Helles or something like that. It would be cool to see these guys have a go at a lager at some stage as well. But yeah, like I say, a very well regarded brewery within the New England hazy and the fruity juicy sour category. So if you're into those, definitely check them out. It's always cool to review their new beers here on the channel. But let's get cracking with this review then. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward a little bit. There's all the usual social media down in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Fermenterarna before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Fermenterarna then, on to my brewery notes. So Fermenterarna, as I've mentioned to you already in previous videos, was founded by Niklas Aronsson and Anna Claesson, and they founded the company together back in 2018. But like I said, the brewery can be found in Strömstad in Västra Götaland up on the Swedish west coast, and it's very close to the Norwegian border. But both of these guys have a little bit of a different story as to how they got into beer brewing, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. But apparently Niklas, he ordered a beer in a bar one day without really knowing what it was, and it turned out that this beer was the Tropic Thunder from Duggesbryggery, brewed of course in collaboration with Stillwater Artisanal, and I think that beer can be considered as the sort of cult classic Swedish sour beer. There's so many breweries that has gone on to inspire actually. But yeah, if you haven't managed to try that beer so far, I highly recommend that you have a look at that one. But this one really opened Niklas's eyes as to what beer could actually be, not simply kind of yellow fizzy stuff. But Anna, on the other hand, had a long relationship with things that ferment, and she runs the restaurant Kostos Trädgårdar, and she's played around with a lot of different things like sauerkraut, sourdough bread, you name it, she's tried to ferment it apparently. So yeah, quite different journeys when it comes to their journeys into beer, if you like. But they started brewing together. They started doing some home brewing, and then they scaled it up gradually. They started out with a small 200-litre brew kit and tanks in late 2018, and then they actually took a break from brewing to expand the company after their beers had been received very well at different festivals. But they now boast a new facility with two 500-litre brew kits, and they've got a total tank capacity of around 17,000 litres, and they've been aiming to brew, or they were aiming to brew 50,000 litres over the course of 20 2019, and they have the equipment to brew around 250,000 litres of beer per year. So I think at the moment they are just kind of gradually scaling up to meet that mark, if you like, and probably they will expand beyond that. I can see them doing that because their beers, as I say, are very, very well regarded. But according to Untappd, these guys have produced around 110 different kinds of beer as of May 2021 when I'm filming this review for you. But like I said, the beers that you'll find from these guys tend to be New England Hazy IPAs, or, you know, Berliner Weisses and Goses and stuff like this, you know, these big juicy fruity sours, and they do them very, very well. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Fermenterarna for the moment. Definitely one of the Swedish breweries to keep an eye on over the next little while, at least in my opinion. So yeah, make sure that you do that. But that's all I can tell you just now. If you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. And I do hope that at some stage I can get up to Strömstad and film a little bit of a kind of out and about interview with these, a little bit of an out and out video at the Coastas Trädgårdar, and potentially we can go and do an interview with these guys as well once this whole COVID-19 pandemic has buggered off. I'm looking forward to doing more interviews over the next little while. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, you get the usual beautiful artwork from Fermenterarna. I don't know who designs these actually. I don't know if it is Niklas or Anna that does it. Actually, it would be cool if they put a little signature down in the corner or something like that to tell you who it was. But yeah, as you can see, there is the Fermenterarna symbol there, the little fermentation vessel. And I noticed the last time it's actually got the little airlock thing. It's even got the little detailed airlock, which I thought was pretty cool, and I hadn't noticed that before. But there you can see on the back you've got the data part of the beer, which again is very, very nice. I ain't no crazy horse, an 8% New England hazy, double imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and the hops in this one are Galaxy from Australia, and then Idaho 7, Citra and Mosaic from America. So yeah, Galaxy about 14% alpha acid, big pungent passion fruit and quite a bit of pineapple from what I remember. Idaho 7's got these lovely soft tropical notes, you know, mangoes, apricots, papayas, all of these kind of things. Again, I think that's about 14% alpha acid hop as well. Citra, we know about 14% alpha acid, lovely juicy mango, a little bit of a citrusy edge to it and quite a few complexities. Then Mosaic, as we know, 14% alpha acid again, and it tends to be like a sort of juicy, light tangerine element. So yeah, very impressive hop bill in this one. I think I paid 50 Swedish kronor for this beer, which translates to about €5, probably about £4.50 sterling, and maybe in the region of $6 American, just for those of you watching in different places around the world. Gold top on the can, as you seem to always get from Fermenterarna these days. But let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And as soon as you open this up, by the way, you can smell that it's just an absolute monster of a thing. So yeah, let's crack on with this. So I think for the moment that will be enough to take a look at the colour and the aroma and things. And there we go. I've lined it up so my OCD is happy. So yeah, as you can see then, we've got probably about 3/4 of the beer into the glass, something like that, maybe 2/3. But you can see the beer is poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That's going to fade away quite quickly though to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer and just leave a nice ring around the edge of the glass. But in terms of colour, this beer, it appears a lot brighter on the camera than it does to the naked eye. This one's actually quite a pale yellow colour. It comes across a little bit more like a sort of pineapple juice rather than being a more kind of mango juice colour. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices, of course, because that's just what their appearance reminds me of. But remember, the colour of these beers depend on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. Incidentally, in a New England IPA, that's going to be about 70 to 90 minutes normally, but the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But the magnitude of the colour is determined by the type of malts that you pick in the first place. Adjuncts and barrel aging, of course, can play a role in determining the colour too, but you know, in this beer those variables are just not at play. But yeah, in terms of the level of haziness that you get out of this one, it's got a fair bit of haze to it. And remember, haze is determined by the kind of oat and wheat content, but also by the yeastiness. Well, the yeast component of the beer as well. But yeah, it's certainly not the haziest of 8%ers that you're going to come across, but it does have a good little bit of haziness to it, which is what you would expect from a New England IPA. Not the soupiest and gloopiest that I've seen though, but it certainly looks like a lovely beer. From memory, you know, these Fermenterarna ones tend to lean a little bit more towards the lighter side in terms of colour and things like that, and they aren't, you know, they're not the most soupy and gloopy of things, but they taste beautiful, so we're not going to criticise them for that. These beers always tend to be pretty nice. But in terms of a New England IPA, nothing particularly surprising about the appearance of this one, so I think it's time to take a look at the aroma before we give it a taste. And as I said, when you open up the can, the whiff you get out of this is just absolutely beautiful. So let's go for it then. Let's have a look at the aroma. Once again, just a beast of a beer. Now I think I've said in other reviews before that Fermenterarna, they have these the Fermenterarna beers to me always come across as really nice and soft, if you like. And as I've said before, I think there's 6 different directions you can take a New England IPA. They can be yeasty and farmhousey, rye and grainy, they can be wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, barley malt leaning and bready, and they can also be a little bit kind of brown sugary leaning. Fermenterarna you always get a little bit of yeastiness out of them. You always get a little bit of wheaty bitiness, and then you can get a soft kind of bready note out of this one. They don't seem too oat heavy in the aromas at least, but you do get quite a bit of oat flavour in the actual taste of the beer, I should say. But yeah, the aroma to this one is very, very nice. And it actually, to me, just from memory, this one smells a little bit more kind of yeasty than I remember some of the other ones smelling actually. But then again, the last IPA we had from these guys, the Beyond the Beast, was intended to be more kind of West Coasty from what I gather. But yeah, but the aroma of this beer regardless is very, very nice. So let's just break that down for you then and describe it properly. So straight away with this beer, you do get a little tiny touch of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing forming the backbone of the beer. But on top of that, you can smell the lovely, soft, white bready notes from the barley malt. Those two things are the backbone of this beer, absolutely. The thing as well with Fermenterarna is that you don't tend to get overly sweet malt bases out of them. They always come out as being very kind of soft and very smooth actually, and just a little tiny hint of a sweetness. But yeah, like I say, Jacob's cream cracker for me. Don't know how good a reference that is for Swedish people right enough, but a sort of crackery type note for me. Soft white bread, then you can smell the oaty smoothness sitting on top of that, and you also get just a little bit of that Werther's Original kind of butter candy element in the very middle of the nose as well. But the oats, the more that you smell of this beer, I think the more the oats start to push their way out of this one. So yeah, I really like how the aroma of this beer goes together from the malty side of things. Fermenterarna always give you a good malt base, and I think there's many people that kind of underappreciate the malty side of the beer. But yeah, the centre of the nose in this one is good, and behind that, of course, you do get a little bit of that more kind of wheaty bitiness there. But the wheat isn't too bitey in this one, I would say. It's got a nice level of smoothness to it, and it's just at the very, very back of the nose that you get the nice, as I say, that you get that nice, how do you say, you get that nice kind of wheaty bitiness in there. But yeah, good bit of smoothness to the wheat, nice little bit of bitiness, and the sort of smoothness of the wheat builds a good bridge with the kind of bready side of the beer too. So I really like how that goes together in the aroma with this one. But yeah, aroma on the malty and yeasty side of things with this beer is very, very nice. You do get just a little bit of that kind of farmhousey, doughy kind of thing out of this beer too. So yeah, I like how that goes together for sure. Yeah, so malty and yeasty side of things gets a big thumbs up for me. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer then. So yeah, hoppy part of the beer. It's got a little touch of earthiness to it, and I would suggest that that probably comes from the Mosaic, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's another bittering hop in this one as well. Remember that your New England IPAs tend to be more reliant on late addition hops, which give you the flavour and the aroma. But you know, with all 4 of these hops, they do have considerable green components to them as well. If you use them as early addition hops, where you're going to get most of the bitterness, they're going to give you that big floral kind of spicy thing, and you are getting quite a little bit of that out of this beer too. So there is just a wee touch of earthiness in the background, but then the green component for me is big and floral and just a little touch spicy. But I've got a nice kind of zesty, I do have a nice kind of zesty, grassy character coming out of this one too. The green component has a good little bit of bite to it, which I think is great. So I really like how that goes together. So thumbs up to Fermenterarna for that as well. This beer does smell as if it's got a little bit more kind of bite to it in a sense too. But on the fruity side of things, it is exactly what you'd expect. You've got a nice big pungent passion fruity note to this, and you're going to get that from Galaxy, from Citra mainly as well. But there's also a little bit more of a kind of mellow passion fruit to it, some nice big mangoes, which are going to be mainly the Citra, and I guess the Idaho 7 will contribute to that as well. You get quite a lot of the softer tropical fruits, you know, like apricots and papayas and things, and there's a good wee bit of pineapple coming out of this one too, which I would say is most likely to be the Galaxy and the Idaho 7. So yeah, the fruity aroma of this beer is very nice. I would say though it takes a little bit of time for the kind of tangerine notes of the Mosaic to kind of show their head a little bit. It takes a wee bit of time to get that out of the beer because of the sheer pungency of the passion fruit in this. Yeah, Galaxy always gives you that big pungent passion fruit, and if you put it with Citra, it's just amplified even more, and you can really see that trait in this beer, absolutely. But in terms of aroma, it's beautifully done, I have to say. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer goes together really nice. It's quite a bitey and quite a sharp New England IPA, I would say, in my opinion. So take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. It's quite hard to resist, just, you know, diving into these ones sometimes. But I think it's about time that we try this beer now and see how we get on. So let me just line that up once again, and I think it's time to have a taste of this one. So yeah, this is the I Ain't No Crazy Horse, an 8% New England Hazy Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Fermenterarna in Strömstad up on the Swedish west coast. Let's get stuck into this beer. Slange, skål, cheers. These guys are just, this brewery's getting ridiculous with these. These are very, it's another just very damn solid beer, this one. First impression I would say is that it is a very soft, it's a very soft and very juicy New England IPA. The sort of bitiness and stuff that you get out of this one, the big floral green component and things that you get out of this one in the aroma, they don't quite come to fruition in this. It really goes in the other direction. It leans towards that softer, juicy side of things, and I would not have expected that from the aroma of this one, I have to say. But, you know, however much the aroma or whatever matches or doesn't match the actual flavour profile that you get out of the beer, you're pretty much guaranteed a solid New England IPA from Fermenterarna, at least in my experience. So yeah, I'm going to say thumbs up to them once again for this one. It's always hard to say like, oh, this is my favourite IPA from these guys, because I've had so many really good IPAs from this brewery, and I think that kind of shows you the quality that they're doing. If it's difficult to pick a favourite beer from a brewery, it's either very, very bad, but that's certainly not the case with Fermenterarna, or it's a sign of good quality, and I think that's what we should think about with Fermenterarna. These guys are just very, very consistent these days, and that's a great thing to see. And this is another lovely New England double IPA, and as I've explained in videos before, for me it's all about tasting different things. That's why I like to get a beer from these breweries every month. It's very rare that I drink the same beer. I just like trying lots of different stuff and then documenting it for you. That's what the channel is all about. But this is a lovely New England double from Fermenterarna once again, so big thumbs up to them. Check out this brewery if you haven't already, but let's try and break down this beer properly for you. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, I would say, this one is, it starts off, it's got a lovely, that sort of Jacob's cream crackery note that I was picking out of this one. You do get a little touch of that in the very backbone of the beer though, but right enough on top of that you get a lovely soft pale malty white bready sort of thing of this one. That's the barley malt forming the backbone of the beer, and it does a really nice job, I have to say. So yeah. And you always get this nice big softness from the Fermenterarna beer. So the bread, I think the more that you drink of this beer, the sort of white bready base of the beer, it sort of just kind of bounces up a little bit and gets a wee bit more fluffy, if you like. But yeah, that's the backbone of this beer. If you go to either end of the kind of middle third of your palate, you get a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty type note out of it. But if you go kind of down the sort of central line of your tongue in that middle third of your palate, you can feel the smoothness of the oats there, and that just creeps out towards the edge of the palate. So yeah, that goes together very well. In the very centre of your palate though, you get a nice little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy type thing coming out of the beer. So yeah, I like how that goes together, absolutely. So yeah, it's as I say, that little bit of sweet brown sugar, that's kind of covering up the sort of boozy side of the beer. But this is one of the things with Fermenterarna, as I say, their beers are always very soft and they cover the booze really, really nicely. But I think this one just has a wee touch more sweetness to it than some of the ones we had before. So yeah, very centred your palate, little tiny touch of a kind of as we say, there's a little touch of a kind of Werther's Original type quality out of this one, and you get a wee bit of a biscuity note. I think there is just a wee touch of a biscuity note as you move out towards the extremities of your palate in this beer. But I think that covers the middle third of your palate quite well. Quite often these malt bases in Fermenterarna beers are quite straight shooting, but they're just very well done. So yeah, we can leave it at that. But yeah, on the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, then you can feel a slightly thicker, doughy, bready element to it. There's a wee bit more of a bread crusty quality, like I say. And then on the back third of your palate, you can feel there's a nice kind of smooth, you can feel that there's a little bit of a more kind of wheaty bitiness, if you like. You do feel that gradually as you progress towards the back of your palate, you get a little bit more of a wheaty bitiness there. But sitting on top of that back third of your palate, you can feel the slightly taller, more kind of, you can feel that slightly taller, more sort of yeasty component coming out of the beer. So that just increases. You can feel that as you start at the back of the palate there, you can feel the flavours like this high, and it just gradually condenses down. Then as you go into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down quite a lot. And the flavours are a bit more kind of squashed together into the middle third of your palate. So yeah, I certainly like how this beer goes about its business in that sense. So yeah, malty side of things, thumbs up for me. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer. So like I said, the hoppy component of this beer is not as bitey as the aroma would have you believe. But it gives you a lot of the things that you would expect from the four hops, if you know these four hops. But yeah, back corners of the palate, then you get a nice little touch of earthiness there, but that smoothens out a little bit as you come further forward, and as you progress further and further forward into the sort of front, onto the front kind of sides of your palate, you can feel it progressively gets a little bit more floral and aromatic as you come forward. It's got a little bit more of a, it gives you a little bit more of a kind of, it gives you a little bit more of a kind of big floral aromatic sort of thing, and a little bit of a spicy note there. But then yeah, as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, if you like. There's a nice little bit of a kind of grassy zestiness out of this one. So yeah, I certainly like how this beer goes together. It's you know, the green component, I think, just adds, it sort of builds the bridge between the other things quite well. It builds a good bridge between the wheaty bitiness and that very slight spiciness that it has. Kind of connects everything together. So yeah, it's interesting. It does give you a little bit of spiciness the further you go into it, but nowhere near as much as the aroma would give you the impression of it being. I thought this one might be, you know, a sort of 50-ish IBU beer or something like this, but it certainly doesn't come across that way. But that's not to detract from the flavour. And anyway, it is just such a well done beer, this. But let's focus on the fruity side of things to round off the tasting component. But yeah, front third of your palate then, border region between front third and middle third, again you get a little bit of a doughy bready build up and a wee bit of bread crust in there. The base of that front third of your palate is a nice sort of soft white bready element there. You can feel a little bit of the smoothness of the wheaty character coming out of this beer, so I can really appreciate that about this one as well. But yeah, sitting on top of that, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer from the hops. So let's break down this fruity component. So yeah, towards the that back part of your palate, then you get the more kind of pungent passion fruit, and like I said, that's going to come from Galaxy and it's going to come from Citra, but it mellows out a little bit as you move further forward, and then you start to get the big juicy mangoey notes out of this one, and that's going to be both your Idaho 7 and your it's going to be your Idaho 7 and it's going to be your Citra to a degree as well. And then moving further forward almost into the centre of that front third of your palate, that's when you get the apricots. I do get a wee bit of papaya out of this one actually. You feel that almost very slightly. It's almost like a kind of coconutty type thing. You do get almost a little bit of that kind of coconutty papaya type note out of the beer. And there's also a little bit of pineapple I think starts to come out as well. So the I think the pineapple is going to come from the Galaxy and from the Idaho 7 in this one, so that's quite interesting. The pineapple actually does spread into that front half of the front third of your tongue as well, but as you move progressively further forward in this beer, you start to get that more oily tangerine note from the Mosaic in this one, and the pineapple just kind of pushes over that. But I would say the fruity component of this beer leans towards, it starts in the aftertaste to lean more towards that pungent passion fruity kind of thing, and the slightly stronger elements of the mango flavour come out in this beer too. And I think that suits, in a way, that kind of does actually suit the slight spiciness that develops in this beer from the green component, as well as the wheaty bitiness that you get. The wheaty bitiness really does build in this one as you progress further into the flavour as well. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a really pretty solid New England double IPA, this one. I don't think there's anyone can deny that about this beer. I think it's very, very well done, and it gets a big thumbs up from me in terms of the flavour. So yeah, it shows off all of these hops very nicely, but I think the Mosaic does take a little bit of a back seat, and potentially the Idaho 7 as well, because the more pungent flavours of the Galaxy and the Citra, I think, come out a little bit more than the other two. I think, yeah, Galaxy and Citra tend to be a little bit more dominant over some of the other hops, just because of that, you know, that grapefruity, passion fruity component that they both have. So yeah, that's worth remembering about this one. The Idaho 7 and the Mosaic sort of add the complexity to it, but the more striking flavours of the fruit come from the Galaxy and the Citra. I think that sums it up quite nicely. But yeah, let's round off the review then with a quick look at the mouthfeel. So I would say this beer, it's starting to push the top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth in this one. It does have a nice little bit of a sort of oily, it does have a nice kind of oily character to it as well, which I can certainly appreciate. You get a little bit more oiliness out of it the further you go into the aftertaste. But the malt base, like I said, there's a nice little bit of wheaty bitiness in there. The wheat also gives you a bit of smoothness, so the malt base in this beer overall, I would say, is quite smooth, but it's just got a little bit of sweetness and kind of creaminess to it. But on the hoppy side of things as well, you've just got a little bit of bite to this one. I mean, I think this is maybe potentially 40 IBUs. I think it does have a slightly higher bitterness to it, and it takes a wee bit for that to build and come out. So it has got a slightly higher bitterness to it, this one, I would say. And you've also got that lovely juicy fruity component too. So I think it builds together. Everything in this beer just fits together very, very nice. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me. The malt base has that typical smoothness that you expect of Fermenterarna. It's got a wee touch of hot bite to it, and then you've got those lovely smooth, juicy, fruity characters out of this one. But like I say, Citra and Galaxy do dominate in this, so it's got a wee bit of pungency. But I think that rounds off this review quite nicely, so we can leave it there. But yeah, this one is the I Ain't No Crazy Horse, an 8% New England double IPA with Galaxy, Idaho 7, Citra and Mosaic from Fermenterarna in Strömstad up on the Swedish west coast. Another solid beer from these guys. If you're into your big fruity juicy sours and New England IPAs, this is definitely a brewery that you want to check out. So yeah, let's leave it there. Thank you again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Fermenterarna, and we will no doubt return to these guys sometime soon. I do have a sour beer to review from these guys before the end of the month, so you can certainly look forward to that. But until the next time, Slanja, Skull, cheers, and I'll catch you guys soon. Make sure you check out Fermenterarna, one of the Swedish breweries to keep an eye on over the next little while. Cheers.